A pair of fighter jets compete to see which one can reach their tower first. Before they begin their contest, the fighter jets are surprised by Dusty, an agricultural aircraft, who challenges them to try to beat him with a big advantage. Despite this, Dusty easily reaches high speeds, and in a few seconds, he overtakes the fighter jets with his thrusters. At that moment, the plane is awakened by Ledbetter, his coworker, who says that his friend needs to stop pretending to be a special aircraft. Bored, Dusty explains that he feels no enthusiasm for doing those spraying jobs, and upon hearing this, the old plane replies that their lives are extremely comfortable and relaxing. At the end of the conversation, the aircraft says goodbye to Leadbottom and leaves to find his friend Chug, who helps him train for the big race. However, during the activities, Dusty ends up damaging some of his components, and receives Dottie's help to repair them. Realizing that the damage was caused by high-speed training, the mechanic becomes enraged and accuses him of returning to his risky racing. At that moment, Chug appears and begins to praise his friend's performance that day. Hearing all this, Dottie becomes even more upset and explains all the problems he could face if he continues to engage in those dangerous races. So Dusty invites his friend to go with them to the competition qualifiers, so they can make sure he stays in one piece. At dusk, Chug and Dusty watch the racing programs in their shed and try to find a way to improve their skills even more. To do this, the truck says they could ask Skipper, a former Navy flight instructor, for help. Although he doesn't like the idea very much, the crop duster takes off to meet him with his friend. Dusty then rings the doorbell, and Chug quickly runs to hide. Soon after, the rookie is greeted by the giant aircraft and begins to ask him to be his coach. After listening to the plane's entire speech, Skipper says he doesn't want to participate in any of it and declares that Dusty will end up crashing if he tries to continue participating in those competitions. Despite failing to convince the veteran, Dusty leaves for the race qualifiers the next day, along with Chug and Dottie. While everyone watches the attractions and old aircraft brought to the competition, the presenter narrates the illustrious appearance of Ripslinger, one of the greatest competitors who ever lived. With that, all participants gather on the runway, and the presenter explains that the 5 best competitors will be selected to qualify for the world's biggest airplane race. The qualifiers finally begin, and some of the aircraft perform well, while others crash during the race. When it's Dusty's turn, the rookie becomes the target of jokes and humiliation from the other competitors, who claim that he will never be able to reach their level. Despite this, the aircraft does not give up on its goal and begins its individual race, where it manages to reach a surprising speed and overcome all obstacles with ease. However, as soon as he crosses the finish line, Dusty realizes that he has ended up in 6th place, and because of this, he will not be selected to participate in the next competition. Trying to cheer him up, one of the competitors approaches the group and says that his performance was impressive. After hearing that compliment, Dusty becomes thoughtful and returns to the field to continue his spraying, without even imagining that he is being watched by Skipper, who is saddened to notice the plane's discouragement. The next day, the competition narrator visits the group, and after meeting with the competitor, he reveals that race officials found a banned substance that belonged to the engine of the plane that came in 5th place. Therefore, having come in 6th place, Dusty is selected as the next participant in the next stage of the race, and upon hearing this, Chug shouts to break the news to everyone. In addition, the presenter confirms the rookie competitor's title, who states that his codename will be none other than Strut Jetstream. Minutes later, the plane receives a visit from Skipper, who says that participating in that competition will be a terrible idea, as he could end up being eliminated in a serious accident. Angry, Dusty explains that he no longer wants to live his life as a crop duster and that he wants to prove that he is capable of achieving more in his life. Upon hearing this, Skipper changes his mind and orders the plane to meet him the next morning so they can begin training. With that, Dusty begins his training with his flight instructor, and after warming up with some basic maneuvers, he orders the rookie to accelerate up to cloud level. However, as soon as he does so, the plane panics and decides to return to solid ground. Confused, Skipper questions what his apprentice is doing, and when they meet on the runway, Dusty reveals that he is very afraid of heights, as he has never flown above 300 meters. After this revelation, the instructor is outraged and considers giving up on teaching him, but the discussion is interrupted by Sparky, the veteran's mechanic. He explains that several planes that had the same fear as Dusty ended up overcoming it over time and became great competitors throughout their lives. Therefore, Skipper decides to continue with the training and says that for now, they will work at his apprentice's speed, so that only later will they move on to greater heights. Hours later, the instructor prepares a route across the region, where Dusty competes alongside another aircraft hired by the veteran. As time passes, the apprentice repeats that same route dozens of times, while Dottie makes some changes to his engines to improve his aerodynamics and speed. Thanks to his instructor's teachings, the aircraft develops extensive experience in accelerated flight, and after several attempts, he finally manages to defeat his opponent. Now that his apprentice is ready, Skipper presents him with a personalized spray can that belonged to his main squadron. Finally, the instructor explains that when the race starts, the large number of planes taking off will create a kind of vortex, and asks Dusty to be careful. In addition, Skipper says he will communicate with his apprentice by radio, because even though he cannot leave his hangar, he will be his co-pilot remotely. So Dusty flies to the competition site, where he meets the presenter who invited him to become a competitor. Soon after, the plane encounters Ashani, one of the best-known champions, who says she is excited to compete alongside a new participant. After that, Dusty starts talking to Ripslinger, and during the interaction, the competitors encounter Mr. Chu, a great Mexican champion. With all the participants present, the broadcast of the race called Wings Around the Globe begins, and host Brent and his partner Colin explain all the stages that will take place during the competition. At the same time, Chug and the other members of Dusty's group watch their friend proceed to the starting line, where thousands of excited fans await. As they take their positions on the track, Mr. Chu falls in love with one of the competitors, and Dusty says that she is Carolina, the winner of the Brazilian airplane rally. Soon after, the judge orders all competitors to start their engines, and with everything ready, the race begins. Quickly, all the planes take off, and Dusty tries to withstand the turbulence caused by the competitors. At the same time, the narrators explain the route, which consists of an uninterrupted journey across the North Atlantic, where the winner will be able to start in first place in the next day's race. Within a few minutes of the race, Dusty falls behind, and because he is flying below the clouds, he is severely affected by the ice, which causes him to lose even more speed. Later, the competitors gather in a shed to shelter from the snowstorm, and while talking to his apprentice on the radio, Skipper says that the next day's route will be on a field full of obstacles. This will allow Dusty to gain some positions on the scoreboard, since even though he is not as fast as his opponents, he has great agility to dodge obstacles. After the break, the competitors return to the race, and during the route, Bulldog ends up with one of his turbines damaged, and the short circuit causes his vision to be compromised. Concerned, the commentators ask the support helicopter to report on what is happening, and it reveals that the participant is about to crash, as he is losing altitude uncontrollably. However, before the aircraft crashes, Dusty flies towards his opponent and begins to guide him so that he can regain control. Thanks to this, Bulldog manages to avoid all obstacles in the area, even managing to fly between the towers of a large castle. Soon after, Dusty accompanies the plane to the finish line runway, allowing the competitor to complete the course safely. The emergency squad quickly rushes to help Bulldog, and when he regains his vision, he is outraged to find that the rookie has come in last just to rescue him. Trying to calm him down, Dusty says he would never allow a plane to be eliminated during the competition, and Bulldog, moved by having been saved, thanks him. At that moment, Ripslinger approaches the rookie and tells him that nice guys like him end up in last place in races, and the comment angers the aircraft. Later, Dusty talks to Mr. Chu about coming in last, and within seconds, they run into France, a car who claims to be a big fan of Dusty, since the plane represents all aircraft that are not well regarded by the world. Confused, the crop duster asks what he is talking about, and the vehicle replies that he is part of a very rare type of flying car that can transform into a complete aircraft. After introducing himself, France questions why Dusty continues to use his sprayer, since he would be much faster and lighter if he no longer had this mechanism in his structure. Upon hearing this, Mr. Chu agrees with the small vehicle, and realizing that he could make a big difference in his performance with this change, the plane heads to the hangar to remove its sprayer. As soon as the procedure is completed, Dusty flies off extremely excited, as he feels that from now on, he will have all the speed he needs to win. The next day, the next leg of the race begins, and the competitors head to an area full of hills, where they will have to fly below 300 meters and dodge obstacles. Now that the race has taken a turn closer to his specialty, Dusty manages to climb the leaderboard, finishing in 8th place at the end of the race. Thanks to the rural plane's great achievement, reporters rush to interview him, and he says he owes all his success to Skipper, his flight instructor. During the interview, Ripslinger and his 2 assistants watch the aircraft from afar, and the champion declares that he will not allow the rookie to take his place on the podium. While watching his friend's statement, Skipper becomes thoughtful, and later decides to head for the runway so he can try to take off after so many years without flying. Excited, Sparky approaches to watch the attempt, but the veteran's engine fails, causing him to give up. Despite this, the mechanic tries to comfort him, saying that they can try to fix his engine and make new attempts another day. In the morning, Dusty contacts his group so they can talk about the next stage of the race, which will take place in the middle of the Great Himalayan Mountains. Upon hearing this, the plane asks if he could fly between the mountains rather than above them, but Skipper replies that this is a terrible idea and says that it is time for his apprentice to reach high altitudes. At the end of the conversation, the plane encounters Mr. Chu, who is trying to win Carolina's heart, but the aircraft shows no interest in him, leaving the Mexican competitor devastated. While trying to comfort him, Dusty is surprised by Ashani, who praises his colleague's performance in the most recent stage of the race. In addition, the aircraft invites his friend for a ride, and together, the competitors cross the region while talking about the next phase of the race. During the conversation, Ashani says she knows about Dusty's habit of flying at low altitudes and explains that he can use the train tracks to cross the region, as this will provide him with a safe route to follow throughout the journey. The next day, the planes set off on their journey through the Himalayan mountains, and while his opponents fly at high altitudes, Dusty follows the tracks. However, within seconds, the competitor notices that the route is blocked by one of the mountains and decides to gain altitude so as not to waste time. The problem is that his fear of heights prevents him from doing so, and refusing to give up, Dusty risks crossing the tunnel, causing his wings to scrape against the walls a few times. Before he can get out, the plane notices that a huge train is approaching, and while the vehicle tries to brake, the competitor accelerates as much as possible, managing to escape at the last second. Upon reaching the top of one of the mountains, Dusty discovers that he has managed to finish the race in first place. Sometime later, the other aircraft complete the course, and reporters rush to interview the rural plane after such an impressive performance. While answering questions, Dusty spots Ashani trying to sneak out of the place and decides to call her back. Noticing that the aircraft has the same propeller as Ripslinger's group, the rural plane gets angry and says he shouldn't have trusted her. Trying to explain herself, Ashani admits that she believed Dusty would turn back, but this only makes him angrier, and after provoking Ripslinger, he leaves. Sometime later, Castor Brent comments on the rise to fame of the competitor known as Strut Jetstream, who has become a hero to working vehicles around the world. Later, Dusty talks to his friends about the next stage of the race and reveals that they will cross the Pacific, the same ocean where his instructor had missions in the past. So, the competitor asks Skipper if he has any tips for him, and the plane replies that all he has to do is watch out for storm clouds. In addition, the instructor says he is proud of his apprentice, and before ending the call, his friends reveal that the group will meet Dusty in Mexico, as they have earned a lot of money after selling products themed around him. The next day, the competitors gather at the international airport, and Dusty begins to taunt Ripslinger, using his first place finish to annoy him. Tired of his opponent's behavior, the plane orders his assistants Ned and Zed to do something for him, saying that they will be useful in dealing with that problem. With that, the sixth stage of the race begins, and the competitors will need to cross the entire ocean towards Mexico. As usual, Dusty flies the route at low altitude, but suddenly, he is surprised by Ripslinger's assistants, who destroy his antenna, causing him to lose control of his direction. As a result, the competitor flies aimlessly through the region, and within minutes, he is intercepted by a pair of military fighter jets, who claim that he is entering a restricted zone. Dusty quickly explains that his antenna has been destroyed by someone and that his fuel is about to run out. Realizing the plane's situation, the pair of fighter jets escort him to their military ship so they can help him. After landing, all the vehicles welcome Dusty with great joy, and before repairing him, the fighters take the competitor to the Navy's Wall of Fame. Upon arriving at the site, the plane discovers that Skipper has only participated in a single mission in his entire career, and while performing his repairs, he decides to call his instructor to ask him about it. Despite trying to keep Dusty's attention on the race, the veteran cannot divert the subject and admits that he has only carried out one mission in his life. Before he can get more information about it, the competitor is warned that a severe storm is approaching the region, so he must leave immediately if he wants to have a chance to continue the race. Without wasting any time, Dusty meets up with the rest of the ship's crew on the runway, who use their launch mechanism to propel the plane. Meanwhile, at the finish line in Mexico, Ripslinger comments to reporters on Dusty's disappearance, but as he walks away from the journalists, he is surprised by Mr. Chu, who scolds him for committing such a dirty act to win the race. Soon after, Ashani appears and states that the plane will never again be the champion it once was. Far away, Dusty tries to fly over the ocean during the monstrous storm, but before he can rise above the clouds to defend himself from the lightning, he ends up being partially hit by huge waves. As a result, the competitor loses control more and more, and suddenly he is faced with a giant wave. Since he won't have time to get around the wave, Dusty decides to go through it, but in doing so, he ends up losing the power of his propellers, causing him to fall into the ocean. The fall causes extensive damage to the entire structure of the plane, which begins to sink deeper and deeper. However, before the competitor is eliminated by the water, he is quickly rescued by one of the rescue teams, who take him to Mexico City. After analyzing Dusty's structure, Dottie realizes that there is nothing more that can be done and declares that his race is over. Outraged, the plane turns to his instructor, and when asked why he lied all this time, Skipper asks everyone to leave them alone for a few minutes. The veteran explains that during his first mission with his reconnaissance squadron, they made a wrong decision and headed toward an enemy ship that appeared to be unprepared. What they didn't realize was that just below the clouds, a huge naval battle was raging, and since they had no time to retreat, they tried to fight for their lives. This only resulted in all the members being easily destroyed by the enemy ship's anti-aircraft batteries, and Skipper was the only member who could be saved from all that chaos. The great tragedy he witnessed made the veteran never want to fly again, and he says he decided to lie about his story so he could teach Dusty, knowing that he would not ask for help if he knew everything. Saddened by everything that is happening, the plane leaves, and the next morning, Chug and Dottie see Dusty standing inside the emergency shed. The mechanic then approaches her friend and says that even though he did something wrong by lying about his story, Skipper was never wrong about his apprentice, as he has proven to be a talented competitor. In addition, Dottie says that everyone in the world is recognizing Dusty's performance, and although he feels much better about what he is hearing, he explains that he is not in a condition to continue the race. At that moment, the trio is surprised by Mr. Chu, who presents his friend with a new pair of professional wings, while revealing that he could never compete without his great friend also being part of the race. Soon after, all the other competitors show up with various gifts for Dusty, in gratitude for everything the crop duster has done for them. Excited, Dottie prepares her friend for the big final race, while Chug analyzes Ripslinger's performance on his television. The next day, Brent begins the narration once again and says that the journey back to the starting point of the race is about to begin. After arriving at the location with his new look, Dusty sets out to confront Ripslinger, who is annoyed to see that he is still in the competition. At the same time, the competitors' group prepares to return to their city, where they will wait for the planes at the finish line, but Skipper says he does not want to go with them and explains that after everything he has done, it would be better for him to stay out of it. Irritated by Dusty's taunts, Ripslinger meets with his assistants and says it's time to finish off that crop duster once and for all. What he doesn't realize is that Skipper is listening in on the conversation and becomes furious when he hears the madman's plans to cheat. At the stadium, the last race begins, and after takeoff, Dusty starts to regain his positions one by one, leaving Bulldog excited to witness his friend's comeback. As the minutes pass, Dusty easily reaches third place, and when they notice their opponent approaching, Ripslinger and his assistants set out to corner him. However, the attack is quickly thwarted by Skipper, who flies in to help his apprentice. At the same time, Dusty dodges one of the mountains, and the veteran shouts for his friend to deal with the assistants while he confronts Ripslinger. Quickly, the competitor performs several maneuvers around the rocks, and thanks to this, the pair of assistants end up cornered between the ravines. Soon after, Skipper hits Ripslinger with a military maneuver, causing the villain to be thrown away. Excited, Dusty praises his instructor, but before they can leave the scene, Skipper is hit by a surprise attack from the cheater, who heads for the finish line. Despite being damaged, the veteran shouts for his apprentice to chase Ripslinger, saying he will be fine. So Dusty furiously sets off after his opponent, who uses his luxury thrusters to gain a huge advantage. Realizing that the only way to overtake his enemy is to gain altitude, Dusty wastes no time and flies above the clouds, overcoming his fear. Thanks to this, Dusty manages to catch up with Ripslinger, and after a quick descent, he uses the secret that Chug discovered, performing a spin that allows him to overtake his opponent. Finally, the Great Wings Around the Globe race ends triumphantly, and everyone gathers on the runway to congratulate the winner on his incredible performance, while Ripslinger is the target of several jokes from the presenter. Soon after, Skipper appears in the middle of the runway and thanks his apprentice for everything he has taught him throughout the journey. To celebrate, Chug shouts for everyone to go to a big party, and a few days later, Skipper and Dusty take off together on the military ship, where they are ready to carry out several missions as a duo from now on. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.